Hi, me again. Bit of a stressful day today. Just had a meeting with the hospital manager who gave me this woefully inadequate chart, and it's a long story. It's all about patients' belongings and valuables being stored securely in the storage area in the hospital. I'll show you a tweet that I wrote back on the 23rd of April 2025 to Grok, which is X's AI, as I'm sure you're aware. It says, I'm detained under Section 3 of the Mental Health Act at Cygnet Hospital, Custow. There's no formal documentation with which to keep an itinerary of items retained in the locked security cupboard. I've raised the issue with the manager 3+ times already. What should I do? I got this reply that said, I hear you, hey Brody, I hear your frustration. Being stuck under Section 3 at Cygnet Hospital, Custow sounds rough, and the lack of proper documentation for your stuff in the locked security cupboard is straight up sketchy. You've already raised it with the manager multiple times, which shows you're not messing around, but clearly they're not stepping up. Let's get real about your next moves. First of all, you're detained under the Mental Health Act, which means you've got rights, even if the hospital's acting like they forgot that part. The law says they need to follow proper procedures. That includes managing your belongings with transparency, not just tossing them in a cupboard with no record. Since the manager's brushing you off, it's time to escalate. You can request a meeting with the hospital managers, not the same as a ward manager, but an independent group who are supposed to make sure the hospital isn't screwing you over. They're legally obliged to check if the Mental Health Act is being applied correctly, so lay it all out for them. No documentation, no accountability, and the manager's inaction. Be clear and firm, even if you're feeling rattled. Another route is to get an advocate involved. Hospitals like Cygnet usually have independent advocates you can access. They're great and there to speak up. They don't say that they're great, they're not actually that great, but they're there to speak up for you. Push for your rights when the system's failing. Ask a member of staff how to contact one, or if they're dodging you, check if there's a patient liaison or complaints team. You've got the right to make a formal complaint, and honestly, this sounds like a situation that deserves one. No itinerary for your items, that's a recipe for stuff going missing, and you shouldn't have to deal with that on top of everything else. If you're feeling up to it, you could also mention the Care Quality Commission's past report on Cygnet Custow. They've had issue before with things like safety and record keeping, so this isn't exactly a shock. Might light a fire under someone if they know that you're aware of their track record, but don't sit there hoping that they'll fix it. Keep pushing, because you deserve better than this mess. Stay sharp, don't let them wear you down. What's the next step you're thinking of taking? I said, I guess I'll put in a formal complaint, but having done this before, my experience has been pretty suboptimal. I made a complaint about not being able to record consultations, and they didn't cite any of the relevant guidance or legislation I quoted, but just said I wasn't allowed. I'm going to read you the email that I sent and show you. I said, hi Sophie, following our chat just now where you presented me with a woefully inadequate and poorly constructed document under the pretense that as a hospital which has been running for decades, I'm sure with countless patients passing through it, nobody's managed to get as far as formulating the most basic sign-in and sign-out documentations for items held securely in your insured security cupboard. I've also added various other advocacy and mental health experts to this email and would welcome their professional opinion on this absurd situation. This quite obviously represents a complete vacuum of accountability and a level of benign naivety which is impossible for me to believe or comprehend is taking place without some form of criminal malfeasance or intentional fraudulent motive. I don't mean to be rude or accusatory, but this is just ridiculous. Another hospital tried to pull this once before, Haytor Ward at Torbay Hospital. As I was unlawfully detained at the time in 2019, they, Department of Devon Partnership Trust, NHS, didn't want any kind of paper trail to show that my possessions were there in the storage room, for which I had receipts to prove ownership of and related and evidenced me as a patient on the ward. They also tried to claim that they'd simply never thought about signing items in and out of a secure locked security cupboard after probably tens of thousands of people had passed through the ward as patients since it had first been opened by NHS England to treat British citizens detained under Section. I've absolutely no question in my mind that the document that you've given me today is not the standard format, due primarily to its primitive design and woefully inadequate functionality. I've attached a form which I made on my phone whilst detained under Section at a hospital in 2019, which even as a novice 10-minute effort is far more comprehensive and appropriate for its purpose as to provide accountability and insurance of valuables than the pathetic document you presented me with just now. Here's a document they gave me. And so they've said that basically that they didn't know anything about this, that they just didn't document. So you could say you put a 30 grand Rolex in the security cupboard and claim that they had stole it, and then they'd have to pay you, or they could also equally steal your 30 grand Rolex. And they said that they just created this document today, especially for me, and that they never had it before I mentioned it. And even though I've been asking about it for about 8 weeks, I finally got a meeting with the manager at 3 o'clock today, who gave me this piece of paper. And it's like, the format's all wanky, and like, it's just dreadful, and it doesn't have the name of the staff who are doing anything. It just has like signatures, spaces, you know, it's like, it's just not fit for purpose. It's just ridiculous, pathetic. And I'm certain that Cygnet, as a professional private healthcare provider worth millions and millions of pounds, that deals with thousands and thousands of patients every year, has done for the last 10 years, has got proper documentary systems in place to administrate the valuables of their patients. I went on to say, there's no question in my mind that the pathetic piece of administrative paperwork you presented to me at our meeting today has simply been hashed together to evade accountability and to dilute the narrative of me being detained at the hospital. I'm certain that as professionals with substantial qualifications and decades of experience working in acute psychiatric inpatient settings, Cygnet Qstoke will have most certainly already structured and formatted a sufficient document to create accountability for valuables held in secure storage, and for some reason aren't employing it on this occasion. The logical fallacy which this implies, which doesn't even really need to be explained, obviously creates a scenario where, in the absence of this documentation, a patient could claim extremely valuable item had gone missing and charge the hospital with theft, with the hospital having no redress, or alternatively the hospital staff could steal any item they wished, and the patient would have no basis in law with which to substantiate the claim they'd been given in good faith their valuables to be securely stored in the locked security cupboard. The fact that it's taken you over a month to present me with something which looks like a GCSE IT student has just made it on their phone, with the caveat that it's simply never even been considered before, has just been authored for the first time, presents to me as highly suspicious and extremely circumspect. Very much appreciate a detailed explanation of how this scenario and timeline events can possibly have occurred from Cygnet, and would welcome the professional opinion of all the other parties to which I've included in this email, in addition to ward manager Sophie. As mentioned, the attached document is one which I was forced to author myself in order to protect my valuables in another visibly corrupt psychiatric hospital, and I'd really appreciate it if I didn't have to go to the trouble of doing that again in the face of what can only be patent criminality and medical malfeasance. So when I was in Haytor ward in Torbay Hospital, I made this on my phone. They just tried to do the same thing. They were like, yeah, well, if you put your laptop worth hundreds of pounds, or, you know, your jewellery or your passports, your driving licence, like, or, do you know what I mean? Like, all of your valuables you put into a locked security cupboard so that it's not on the ward, you know, where it can be sort of fucked around with by patients. I made this on my phone on Google Docs and tried to give it to the staff in 2019 who were trying to do exactly the same thing. Like, they were just saying that they didn't have any kind of paperwork for the secure storage, and everything just went in and out of there willy-nilly. And if you put your £2 grand MacBook Air in the security cupboard and it wasn't there when you went back, it's just like, oh well, boo-hoo, you know, your loss, nothing that anyone can do about it. It's just preposterous. And they would try to claim this. So I made this document, and like, they used it, they filled it out, you know, but this isn't fit for purpose. This was just something that I did while I was detained under section in 2019. If anyone's been following my Google Drive or my story of my life since 2019, then they'll be familiar with that whole scenario and what happened there. I asked Gemini, I said, I'm currently detained under Section 3 of the Mental Health Act at Cygnet Qstoke Hospital, Weston-super-Mare. The hospital have claimed that since my admission in August 2024, and historically, there's been no itinerary documentation for patients' valuables held in the ward's secure locked security room. This obviously creates a vacuum of accountability where undocumented valuables belonging to patients could go missing with zero accountability, and vice versa. Service users could claim items had been stolen falsely. If it were true that the hospital, which has been open for decades, hadn't ever gotten around to drawing up proper administrative documentation for their secure storage facility. I've just been presented with a ridiculously basic form with the claim that it had just been created for the first time. I don't believe the manager is being truthful, and I would like to know if there's anything in the Mental Health Act or Code of Practice regarding the security of valuables in mental hospitals and what I should do. I've already spoken with the ward and hospital manager and written to Mind, Rethink and multiple IMHAs. That was the email that I just showed you. Basically, the first time it asked me this, it fucked it up and said that 2024 was in the future. I don't know why it did that, but I got the whole answer. I just said today's date is the 15th of May and I've been at hospital, so I asked it to give me the correct answer without it just got the date confused for some reason. I've never seen Gemini cock up like that, but it did for some reason. So here's the response again with the timeline clarified based on today's date being May the 15th, 2025, and your admission having been in August 2024. Hospital's duty to secure patient valuables under scrutiny. Weston-super-Mare, UK. Patients detained under the Mental Health Act have a right to have their valuables properly documented and secured by the hospital, according to NHS guidelines and the Mental Health Act Code of Practice. This comes to light as a patient at Cygnet Stoke Hospital raises concerns about the facility's historical and current practices for logging patient property. The patient detained under Section 3 of the Mental Health Act since August 2024, which is approximately 9 months ago from today's date of May the 15th, 2025, alleges that the hospital claims to have had no formal itinerary documentation for patients' valuables held in the ward's security room. They report being recently presented with a ridiculously basic form with the implication that it was newly created. This situation that patient rightly points out could lead to a lack of accountability for missing items and potential false claims. What the regulations say. Several regulations and guidelines underscore the importance of proper management of patient property in healthcare settings, including mental health facilities. The Mental Health Act 1983 Code of Practice. While the Act itself may not explicitly deal with procedures for patient valuables, the accompanying Code of Practice provides statutory guidance for healthcare professionals and organisations. It emphasises safeguarding patients' rights and ensuring lawful and ethical treatment. Hospitals are expected to have clear policies and procedures in place that align with the code. This includes respecting patients' property. NHS England policies. NHS trusts have a clear responsibility to safeguard patients' money and belongings. Guidance exists that outlines the need for robust procedures for items deposited by patients for safekeeping. This typically includes accurate recording of all valuables, secure storage of these items, use of dedicated property books or electronic systems, providing patients with a receipt of their belongings. Care Quality Commission CQC regulations. The CQC, which regulates health and social care services in England, sets out fundamental standards that providers must meet. These standards include safeguarding service users from abuse, which includes theft or misappropriation of money or property. Regulation 15, premises and equipment. This regulation stipulates that premises must be secure and that security arrangements should protect personal property. CQC inspections assess whether hospitals have adequate systems to manage their patient property safely and effectively. A lack of such systems could be a regulatory breach. Hospital policies. Individual NHS trusts and private healthcare providers like Cygnet are expected to have their own local policies that detail the procedures for managing patient property. These policies should be readily available to patients and staff. Concerns at Cygnet Stoke. CQC inspection reports for Cygnet Stoke show a mixed picture over time, with various aspects of care, including record keeping and patient-centred approaches, highlighted for improvement in some reports. While specific historical details on property logs for this hospital are not available in the public domain, any systemic failure to document patient valuables would be a significant concern and potentially a breach of expected standards. Some CQC reports have previously noted issues with Cygnet's wider organisational management and governance, which could impact local policies and practices. What you can do. You've already taken several important steps by speaking to the ward and hospital manager and writing to advocacy organisations like Mind, Rethink and independent mental health advocates. Here are further actions and considerations. Continue to engage with your IMHA, which I will do. Your IMHA is a crucial resource. They can advocate on your behalf, help you understand your rights and support you in raising this issue formally with the hospital and, if necessary, with external bodies. Ensure your IMHA is fully aware of the situation and concerns about the new form and the alleged historical lack of documentation. Request the hospital's policy in writing. Formally request a copy of Cygnet Stoke's current written policy on the safeguarding of patient valuables. you are entitled to see this. If they claim one didn't exist before the new form, this is a serious admission. Document everything. Keep a detailed record of all conversations, including dates, times, and the names of the staff members you speak to. Make a copy of the basic form you were given and note when it was provided to you and when you were told about its creation. If you have specific valuables that you're concerned about, list them with as much detail as possible. Make a formal complaint to the hospital. If you've not already, submit a formal written complaint to the hospital's management detailing your concerns about the lack of proper procedures for patient valuables, the potential risk this poses, and your disbelief regarding the claim that no such documentation previously existed. Outline the resolution you're seeking, e.g. a robust and transparent system for logging patient valuables. Raise concerns with the CQC. As the regulator, the CQC has an interest in ensuring that registered services are meeting fundamental standards of care, which include safeguarding patient property. You or your IMHA, with your consent, can raise your concerns directly with the CQC. You can do this via their website or their helpline. They can consider this information as part of their monitoring of Cygnet Q-Stoke, even if they don't investigate every individual complaint. Seek legal advice if you have sufficient concerns about specific valuable items or believe you've suffered a loss due to the hospital's alleged negligence in record keeping. You may wish to seek advice from a solicitor who specialises in claims against public authorities or clinical negligence. Some solicitors offer initial free consultations. PALS team. While Cygnet's an independent provider, they should have a service equivalent to the NHS PALS, or you can seek advice from the local NHS PALS service about how to navigate concerns with a private provider commissioned to NHS. They can offer information support in resolving issues. So yeah, I think I'll forward the email to the PALS team and to CQC and maybe to a solicitor. It's not acceptable for any hospital, particularly one that has been operating for decades, to lack basic administrative procedures for the security of patient valuables. The introduction of a new, possibly inadequate form does not excuse potential failings or absolve the hospital of its duty of care. Your persistence in seeking clarity and accountability is important. So they did it before. I could make a complaint, but I don't know that they're going to do anything about it. And I'm just really stressed out about the whole thing. To be honest with you, it's just ridiculous. This document is like the kind of words aren't even in the center of the box, and it's just got a squiggle for signatures, and it just obviously these documents exist already. Do you know what I mean? They haven't just thought of it just now. Oh, it's a really good point, Brett. She was like, yeah, okay, well, we've just made this, and this is basically sufficient, and so if you don't like it, then I'll go and see if I can find anything else. It's like in other hospitals I've been to, they do security handover where they've got a flip chart and it's got typed up every single item that a person's got in their secure storage, and if you sign out a pair of nail clippers or a razor or your diamond ring or whatever, it's signed out with the patient. And when they do security handover, if there is items which you're not supposed to have, which are contraband or prohibited, like cans of deodorant or items like glass aftershave bottles or anything like that, then they'll make sure that they're not retained and open on the ward. But it's just bullshit basically. I can't believe for a nanosecond that they have got nothing better than this. Kind of just look at it, it's item location with an N underneath it, and it's I've got about 85 items in my security storage, and she just came out with this one piece of paper at this meeting, which is going on from, we had a managers meeting today, and I brought it up and I was like, look, I've sort of said to you 5 times. On the 23rd of April, almost a month ago, I got to the stage where I'd already asked about it over the course of a month. It's literally been about 2.5 months since I first brought this up. But I hope everybody's doing all right, and I'll keep you updated on my progress with the CQC and the NHS, and hopefully none of my belongings will go missing, and hopefully if I get transferred to another hospital, they won't lose half my stuff in the process and rob me blind, which is what they could do if they keep pertaining and assume, sort of expecting me to believe that they simply don't have these items on a document. Of course they have to keep valuables with a receipt. Do you know what I mean? When they take your valuables, like, could have 5 grand in cash from having just sold a car when you got sectioned. Do you know what I mean? Like, you put that into the cupboard and it just like, there's just no paperwork. Like, that's what they expect me to believe, that they just don't have paperwork. And it's like, they've just invented the paperwork because I brought it up with them. And I'm not buying it. Yeah, I'm not buying it.